welcome back to the Lammicast. We're here at MKE Palmer Street, and it's kind of crazy, Bryan, that we bought this place from Jabari Parker, one of the original one-and-done guys, and we thought that was really young, but we get to talk with Bryan Ersoy today, who's now working with, at times, 17-year-olds, not those old 19-year-olds like some of those one-and-done NBA guys were. So super excited to talk about NIL, name, image, likeness. Bryan Ersoy is definitely our expert here. So I'm just going to turn it over generally. Tell us more about you. What makes up Bryan Ersoy / Beers?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can just kind of run through my story and how I got to where I am today. So I'm from Pewaukee, Wisconsin, went to UW-Madison from 2015 to 2019, studied political science because I thought I was going to go to law school and ultimately be a contract agent. Now I joined Sports Business Club at UW-Madison, and in that club we basically talk to people in different aspects of sports, so whether that be an organization, agencies, just brands that work in sports, and I definitely knew that was kind of the path I wanted to go down. I entered with the Milwaukee Brewers my junior year of college. I interned here, I guess what was formerly Lammy Sports Management, back in 2019, and then 2 weeks after graduation was hired on here full time.
Outstanding, and it was a good hire by us, I must say, because you do crush it. So let's talk a little bit about NIL. I felt like you were there right at the beginning when it became legal, and I think you've got some cool stories around Braylon, some of the other guys that you work with, but what was that experience like, going from a college student cheering for these guys to now representing some of the biggest names, certainly in the state, and doing some of the bigger deals in the country with guys like Braylon Allen? How has that transition been?
Yeah, well, I thought, obviously with the company here, having worked with pro and retired guys for over 20 years when I got here, I kind of knew that just if we use the same strategies and best practices that worked for the pro and retired guys on the college guys, we'd be successful. And I've always said I look young. I was young at the time. And yeah, just having come from UW, I thought I could relate really well to the college students just on like where to eat, what classes to take, kind of where to go out. So yeah, I thought it would be kind of a good niche spot for me and maybe become an expert in a spot that no one was an expert in, obviously because NIL was so new. Obviously, I've told this story 1,000 times to you, but yeah, saw Braylon Allen in that spring semester of COVID football. Saw him running over kids that were just getting out of algebra class, and saw an interview and was like, this kid is absolutely special. We have to work with him. So Bryan was on board, obviously, and reached out to Braylon about 3 days after NIL became legal and hopped on a Zoom with Braylon. I think Braylon, his mom, you, me, and Donald, and probably about a week later, officially signed Braylon, and about a week after that, got him his first deal with Iron Jock. And we've kind of been cooking with gas from there.
I love that. And, you know, Braylon did kind of help start it all, but now with Chimere and so many other guys that we're blessed and honored and excited to work with at UW, at Penn State, at multiple schools, just tell us maybe some of your, I don't know, favorite stories or, you know, proudest moments as it relates to helping these guys to make some of their dreams come true.
I guess Iron Jock is just such a cool story. Because when we started with Iron Jock really wasn't a public company at the time. They were just getting started as well. So Braylon was kind of this unknown entity, as was Iron Jock. And they both kind of grown into more well-known entities in the state of Wisconsin as we've kind of been on this journey for the last 3 years with them. So I feel like that partnership's been great and kind of a great case study, honestly, for how NIL can work and the good parts of NIL, I guess you could say.
Yep. Yeah, I do like that. Paul's been an amazing partner at Iron Jock. I think he's so well known throughout the state. That brand is growing, which you love to see. You want your partners to keep succeeding. So a lot of success with football guys. Now basketball season's coming up. I mean, it's here. And we're excited with Chucky and Tyler and all that's going on there. Do you see some differences between basketball, football? You know, how does your kind of day-to-day change maybe as the sports change?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you gotta stay focused on your guys all year round, but yeah, ultimately when it's basketball season, basketball is going to be at top of mind for people. So that's ultimately kind of going to be my focus in reaching out to brands on these basketball guys. And let's say Chucky had a really big game the other night. I'm going to be reaching out to brands and hoping they remember how great of a game that was. I guess just though the difference between football and basketball in general this goes for players just in general, just not NIL. But the football guys are under helmets and people might not know what these guys look like. There's also 22 guys that get playing time on offense and defense between the 11. Whereas basketball, there's like maybe 6, maybe 7 guys actually playing in a game, and they're all 6'8", and everyone knows exactly what they look like. So I feel like from a personal brand standpoint, if you're a heck of a basketball player, that could be very profitable for you in the NIL space.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I remember when we were working with Patrick Baldwin Jr., even though he didn't have the ideal freshman season at UWM, I think there's so much around potential in basketball especially. So even an injury-plagued season still let him go to the NBA, and we're finding opportunities. So, and I think that's really interesting in general, that NIL, I think, does appeal to so many brands and companies. You have these great diehard fan bases. It's new because you couldn't do athlete deals with current, players. But can you just talk about, what you're seeing there, what the feedback is as, groups get more familiar with working with college athletes and why it could be more powerful than some other opportunities out there in the sports space?
Yeah, my pitch, kind of advocating for it would be, and you're basically working with a pro athlete, just someone a couple years younger. So I know a lot of companies are maybe scared to dip their feet in with NIL because they're just scared to work with college athletes. But a college athlete can be as big of a deal, if not a bigger deal, than a pro athlete. I guess not going too deep down a tangent, but let's think about like Johnny Football back in the day. That was probably the biggest story in sports for a moment in time there.
Absolutely.
Zion Williamson with Duke basketball, or even Caitlin Clark last year with Iowa women's basketball. I feel like college sports can become the talk of the sporting world, and when they are, there's no reason why these brands shouldn't be head over heels for some of these athletes.
Yeah, that's a great call. You bring up a good point. Caitlin and some of those are great examples of current athletes that are able to benefit. Who do you think would have been some of the biggest name NIL athletes of all time? Because there are these phenomenal college stories and they really weren't able to do anything. I'm just curious as to what maybe a couple of your top guys
I think Johnny
might
Football,
have done.
Johnny Football has to be one.
Johnny Football's pretty huge.
I think that story just absolutely captivated the nation, and like when he beat Bama in that one game, there were so many iconic moments, and obviously the nickname kind of played into the legend that Johnny Football was. And maybe the legend of Johnny Football a little bit was because of the fact I think everyone knew that he was getting this under the table money and he was filthy rich as a college student when that wasn't the norm back in the day. Yeah. But yeah, I think Johnny Football won one, and something about that Duke basketball team with Zion was a really big deal to me. I think him like blowing out that Nike shoe during the game and President Obama being there, I remember that being like, wow, college sports it's a big deal.
Yeah.
I guess another point would be, I know maybe not in the grand scheme of things being the biggest deal in NIL ever, but locally people will obviously remember the 2014 and 2015 Badger basketball teams, and I always think those guys would have made an absolute killing. I feel like they were kind of the media darlings that year. I remember Nigel Hayes would give the stenographer at the press conferences crap all the time, and I thought that was just a funny story. The guys seemed relatable. It was almost like they were hanging out at a tournament, like they were youth kids. Yeah. So yeah, everyone kind of like related to them, and I feel like that story was very captivating. Frank the Tank, you had the nickname. Sam Decker was a local Wisconsin kid. Bronson Koenig with his Native American roots. I feel like it was just a kind of amazing team of individuals that came together and could have made a ton of money, I guess, in the process of ultimately being an amazing basketball team.
Yeah, that's a good reminder to me of how young you are and how young I'm not. That I'm thinking of like David Robinson back in the day, big upsets in the NCAA tournament, maybe Villanova when they upset Georgetown, or even Patrick Ewing and those great Georgetown teams. there were so many great stories and great
It's
athletes.
Christian Leitner and the Duke.
Yeah,
Obviously,
sure.
I wasn't really watching that.
Christian
but-
Leitner played for at least 6 or 7 years in college, didn't he?
Oh, the true red shirt, yeah, the original red shirt.
I mean, between him and Bobby Hurley, I mean, it just felt like those guys were on national TV every week. So felt like those were really long careers. So it is crazy to think about what those guys accomplished versus now what the potential is, in the current day. It's definitely a different world in so many different ways. What are some of the other NIL stories that you're following, or where do you think some of these opportunities go next in the college space?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of starts and ends with what happens with the TV money and all these lucrative TV deals kind of going on surrounding college sports. Obviously, now that we've kind of set the precedent that college athletes are going to be compensated in some way, shape, or form for their name, image, and likeness, feel like they're going to be compensated in some way, shape, or form surrounding all the people watching NBC, CBS, Fox surrounding their games. So I feel like that's kind of the next big domino to fall in the NIL space.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's overdue. I think these guys should be compensated for the talent and ability they're bringing to the table. It is stunning to me that if you want to start a company in college, you can do that and make millions, but you couldn't be paid for what you're even doing on the court. Now you can, obviously, off the court, but it's definitely an evolving space, but one we're excited to be a part of, and I sincerely do think that you've done an amazing job helping us just to grow in this NIL space. What else do we need to think about for what's coming up in 2024 with what you're working on, or just kind of, NIL stories more in the shorter term before some of those other major sea changes may be coming about?
Yeah, so I mean, I think just my favorite story that I've been a part of in NIL in general is just Chimere Dike's football camp. Chimere Dike, if you guys who are listening don't know, is a wide receiver for the University of Wisconsin, originally from Waukesha, Wisconsin, so a local kid that chose to stay home and play for Wisconsin. But his story gets interesting so he played 4 varsity sports growing up at Waukesha North High School, along with his best friend, Kai Lermer. Obviously, you think of someone who plays 4 varsity sports as an absolute super athlete. But one day in the summer of, I believe, 2019, maybe it was 2020, but Kai, Chim, and a couple other buddies were hooping at a park in Waukesha, just a local outdoor kind of community park. And ultimately, Kai did pass out from a super rare heart condition, they found out. And unfortunately, none of the guys knew CPR, and there was no one there with a defibrillator since it was an outdoor park. It wasn't like a school building or a gym or whatnot. So ultimately, Kai did pass away, and Kai's parents, along with Chim, started the Kai Lermer Memorial Fund. And what that's basically doing is just getting the word out there about like CPR and EKG tests. So Kai's life could have been easily saved with just a super simple EKG test. And what they're also pushing to do is, so a lot of people know for their WIA, the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association here, if you're even wanting to play a WIA sport, you have to get a physical to kind of play that sport. You get like a physical card at the beginning of the year, you have your doctor fill it out and whatnot. But a part of that physical, so the Kai Lermer Memorial Fund is trying to get an EKG test to be a part of that yearly physical, or in the very least having your doctor talk about it. So yeah, just spreading the word about the importance of EKG tests. The Kai Lermer Memorial Fund also does pop-up EKG testing in the Waukesha community. An EKG test, if you go to your doctor, are normally like $200 to $250. Through this foundation, it's actually only like $25 to $30. So yeah, trying to get the word out there, trying to get as many kids tested as possible. I think they told me they've already saved like 4 to 5 lives. But yeah, this football camp is just a great way to talk about it, get it at the forefront. We had like 100 kids last year come through at Waukesha North High School. The school's been great, helped us out kind of spreading the word. Chim's had like 20 to 25 teammates come out and support him. We raised about $30,000 for the cause last year, so I thought that was really cool.
That is very cool. It's amazing, and I know we're excited to keep raising money for that amazing group. So one last question. So I know I get approached a lot by young people who want to work in sports or want to work in the NIL space. I know you do too. You weren't that far removed from what do I do now, a few years ago. What is just some general advice that you would give to college students, maybe high school students, if you want to be on this sports track, what do you think is important for them to be thinking about or experiencing as they try to start thinking about a professional career?
Yeah, I mean, as it's specific to sports, I feel like try several different types of internships. Kind of like I said before, at the Sports Business Club, we talk to people in agencies, we talk to people that worked with brands that worked with sports, we talk to people that work for actual organizations in sports. Just kind of find first off like what you really like and what's your thing in sports. And obviously for me, I liked working with the players and kind of being an agent of sorts. So an agency was definitely the route for me to go. And then just a little bit of advice in general. I mean, it's super, super cliche, but it's gotten me this far, is literally hard work can like take you so far. Like there's so many people that aren't putting in the work. And if you're just willing to put in the extra hour of recruiting a player, the extra hour of looking at leads at a game you're at, yeah, I just feel like putting in the extra work means so much. And like I said before, super cliche, but I mean, it's literally gotten me this far. Why not keep trying hard?
I like it. Well, please keep doing that. Keep crushing it for us. Really excited to talk NIL today, and excited that that's going to be a big part of our continuing future here too. So thanks for joining us. Thanks to the tens and tens of viewers, probably millions soon, joining us. And thank you to Abby. Thank you to Keegan for your work on the podcast. We've got some big things coming up next month. So keep tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Thanks all.